Dear brothers and sisters, when we observe the current state of the world and reflect on the condition of the Muslims both in our personal affairs and in our collective struggles, we find that, unfortunately, many of us have adopted a mindset of resignation. There exists a subtle but pervasive attitude of accepted defeat. Now, what do I mean by accepted defeat? We acknowledge that Allah, His WT, has decreed trials, tribulations, and hardships for us. We recognize that the tests of this world are part of our journey, and we accept them without knowing when relief will come. Yet, instead of actively striving to overcome our difficulties, some of us merely endure them with the passive hope that Allah will grant us ease in the hereafter. This mindset manifests in our personal approach to faith. At times, we do not exert our full effort in worship, assuming that whatever little we manage to do will be accepted by Allah. We perform acts of devotion with minimal energy, forgetting that excellence in worship is part of our commitment to Allah. We neglect striving for ihsan, excellence, thinking that the bare minimum is sufficient. On a communal level, we often view the challenges facing the Ummah, whether it be the oppression faced by our brothers and sisters in Gaza, the struggles of Muslims across different lands, or the broader difficulties confronting our communities, as insurmountable. We become convinced that our fate is sealed, that we are destined to remain weak, that victory is out of reach. However, even in these moments of despair, we find solace in faith. But is this passive outlook what our religion teaches us? Victory in this life and the next. One of the most powerful lessons from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is the concept of victory not just in the hereafter, but also in this world. Islam does not teach us to resign ourselves to fate without striving. The Sirah, biography of the Prophet, and the history of this, are filled with examples of individuals who never surrendered to despair. Even in their most difficult moments, they firmly believed that success, whether in the form of triumph in this life or martyrdom leading to eternal victory, was inevitable. Consider the noble companion Hanzala, who gave his life in battle, knowing without a doubt that Allah's promise was true. He did not hesitate or waver, because he understood that Allah's decree is always in favor of the believers, whether through victory on earth or through the eternal rewards of the hereafter. Similarly, when the Prophet and his companions faced insurmountable odds, such as during the Battle of Badr or the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, they never adopted a mindset of defeat. They understood that hardship was a test, but they also knew that with perseverance and faith, Allah would open doors of success that they could not yet see. We must ask ourselves, do we approach our personal and communal struggles with the same certainty in Allah's promise? Do we believe that, through our sincere efforts, Allah will bring about victory and change, effort, intention, and reward? One of the most beautiful aspects of our relationship with Allah is that He rewards not only our results, but also our efforts. Every sincere step taken towards goodness is counted, even if the ultimate outcome is not achieved in our lifetime. Allah tells us in the Qur'an, "Indeed, this is your reward. Your efforts have been fully acknowledged and appreciated." Surah Al-Insan 22. This means that nothing we do for His sake is ever lost. Every prayer we make, every act of charity, every step taken in the path of justice is recorded and rewarded, whether or not we see the fruits of our labor immediately. The Prophet emphasized this when he taught us that our actions are judged by our intentions. If our hearts are sincere and we strive for good, Allah will reward us even if our goals are not realized in our lifetime. But beyond reward, there is another gift that Allah grants to those who strive in His way: clarity and guidance. The power of striving, Allah says in the Qur'an, "As for those who strive in our cause, we will surely guide them to our ways. Indeed, Allah is with those who do good." Surah Al-Ankabut 69. This verse carries immense wisdom. It tells us that when we sincerely strive in the path of Allah, He does not just reward our effort, He also opens doors of guidance that we could not have imagined. This is true in both our personal spiritual journeys and in our collective struggles as an Ummah. When we make an effort to seek knowledge, Allah increases us in knowledge. When we take steps towards righteous action, Allah facilitates even greater deeds for us. Think of how success works in the worldly sense. A person striving for success in business or education does not sit idle, waiting for results to come to them. They pursue their goals relentlessly, knocking on every possible door, learning from every failure, adjusting their strategy until they achieve their objective. Similarly, in our pursuit of righteousness, we must actively strive. We must apply what we learn, push forward, and never settle for inaction. The scholars of the past emphasize this. Whoever acts upon what they know, Allah will teach them what they do not yet know. This means that when we practice what we have already learned, Allah grants us further understanding and insight. By applying the knowledge we have, we unlock deeper levels of wisdom and guidance. Sincerity unlocks victory. One of the defining traits of those who achieve success in the sight of Allah is their unwavering sincerity. They are not deterred by obstacles. They are not discouraged by betrayal. They remain steadfast, knowing that Allah's help is near. Half of winning is believing that you can win. Those who believe in their cause, who trust in Allah's promise, who refuse to give up, are the ones who ultimately succeed. Look at the great leaders of Islam people like Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ru'ayh, and Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Their victories were not the result of passive hope, but of relentless effort, strategic thinking, and, most importantly, deep faith in Allah. The same principle applies to our modern struggles. Today, we see Muslims standing firm for justice across the world. From those defending the oppressed to those spreading the message of Islam despite relentless opposition, success comes to those who refuse to surrender to despair. Consider the recent rise in interest in Islam. Despite the onslaught of Islamophobia, despite the efforts to suppress the truth, more and more people are embracing Islam every day. The very forces that sought to weaken us have, by Allah's will, unintentionally contributed to the spread of the deen. What should we do? So, dear brothers and sisters, what is our role in all of this? First, we must rid ourselves of a defeated mindset. We must not look at the Ummah's challenges and say, "There is no hope." The Prophet warned against such thinking. Instead, we must be proactive, always searching for ways to contribute to the cause of Allah, no matter how small our role may seem. Second, we must be persistent. If one effort does not succeed, we must move to the next. If one path is blocked, we must find another. The believer is resourceful, resilient, and determined. And finally, we must have complete faith in Allah's plan. He is the best of planners. No matter what strategies are devised against the Ummah, no matter how powerful the opposition seems, the final victory belongs to those who remain steadfast in His cause. May Allah grant us the strength to persist, the wisdom to act, and the certainty to know that His help is near. Dear brothers and sisters, when we observe the state of the world today and reflect upon the condition of the Muslim Ummah, both at the individual level and within our communities, we see a prevailing mindset of passive acceptance, a kind of internalized defeatism. What do I mean by this? We recognize that Allah has ordained trials and tribulations for us. We understand that hardship is a part of this life, and we acknowledge that ease will come in its appointed time. But too often we allow this knowledge to make us complacent. We tell ourselves that as long as we remain patient, as long as we endure, the reward will come in the hereafter, and while this is undoubtedly true, it should not lead us to inaction. On a personal level, many of us approach our deen with half-hearted efforts. We offer our prayers, we give our charity, we make our du'as, but we do so with an underlying resignation. We convince ourselves that whatever little we do will be accepted, that things will somehow fall into place. And on a communal scale, when we witness the struggles of our brothers and sisters, whether in Gaza, Palestine, or in other parts of the world, we sometimes fall into despair. We think, what can we possibly do? We assume that we are powerless, that victory is distant, and that perhaps it is written for us to suffer in this world while awaiting justice in the next. But this was not the way of the Prophet. This was not the mentality of the righteous predecessors. The believers of the past, those who lived in the time of the Prophet and those who came after, did not simply wait for divine intervention. They strove for victory both in this life and the next. The promise of victory. Take the example of Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. He had absolute certainty in the promise of Allah. He had no doubt that the Prophet would ultimately prevail, that the conquest of Makkah would come, and that Islam would be victorious. Yet this certainty did not lead him to complacency. Rather, it drove him to act, to fight, and to give his life for the cause. The companions of the Prophet understood that their success was assured not only in the hereafter but in this world as well. They lived by a simple truth: victory or martyrdom. Either they would witness the triumph of Islam with their own eyes, or they would attain the highest reward in the hereafter. Either way, they had already won. But how do we, as modern Muslims, develop this mentality of victory? How do we foster a mindset that allows us to excel in our personal faith while also contributing to the success of the Ummah? The roadmap to success: striving in the path of Allah. Allah tells us in the Qur'an, "As for those who strive in our way, we will surely guide them through our paths." And indeed, Allah is with the doers of good. Quran 29-69. This verse encapsulates a profound reality. Those who sincerely exert themselves for the sake of Allah will not only be rewarded but will be guided. Allah will unlock doors for them. He will provide them with clarity, with new opportunities, and with deeper understanding. This is one of the greatest blessings of striving in the path of Allah. It is not just about the outcome, it is about the journey. Every sincere effort we make for the sake of Allah is recorded. Every moment spent in pursuit of righteousness, every sacrifice, every struggle, nothing goes unnoticed by our Lord. The Prophet taught us, actions are judged by intentions. Even if a person intends good but is unable to complete the deed, Allah still records it for them. And if they strive toward a noble goal, He will open more doors for them. Consider the example of someone who wants to become a scholar. They do not simply sit in a room and make dua for knowledge to descend upon them. They seek it. They study. They sacrifice their time. They immerse themselves in learning. And as they continue on this path, Allah blesses them with deeper understanding, with wisdom, with insight that they could never have attained had they not taken the first step. This applies to all aspects of life. If we want to be patient, we must practice patience. If we want to develop good character, we must act upon the teachings of the Prophet. If we want success for the Ummah, we must work toward it. The mindset of the victorious. When we examine the lives of the great leaders of Islam, whether it be Umar ibn al-Khattab, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, or others, we see a common trait: they refused to accept defeat. They were relentless in their pursuit of justice. They knocked on every door. They tried every means available to them. They were undeterred by obstacles, undistracted by doubts. Half of winning is believing that you will win. This is why those who strive for the sake of Allah always find a way forward. They do not resign themselves to despair. They do not say, "We are powerless." They say, "What more can we do?" They strategize. They adapt. They remain steadfast. Look at the example of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas during the battles against the Persian Empire. When the Muslim army faced the massive Persian war elephants, an obstacle they had never encountered before, he did not panic. He did not retreat. Instead, he said, "They have elephants? Then we will make elephants." This attitude is what separates those who achieve victory from those who accept defeat. The believers do not turn away in fear. They adapt. They persist. And ultimately they succeed. Our role in today's world. Now, dear brothers and sisters, what does this mean for us today? In a time when Islam is under attack from all directions, whether through media, policies, or outright aggression, how do we respond? Do we sit back and say, "This is the decree of Allah and we can do nothing"? Or do we ask ourselves, what has Allah given me and how can I use it to serve His cause? Everyone has a role to play. Some will be scholars, some will be activists, some will be educators, Some will be businessmen supporting the cause. But no one should be passive. No one should feel that they have nothing to contribute. Allah does not ask us to single-handedly change the world. He asks us to strive and He will take care of the rest. They plan and Allah plans. And Allah is the best of planners. Quran 8:30. Even when the enemies of Islam plot against us, even when they use all their wealth and power to suppress the truth, their own plans will turn against them. The rise of interest in Islam, the mass conversions we are witnessing, the spread of Islamic awareness, despite all odds, this is Allah's plan in action. Final thoughts. Dear brothers and sisters, the time for inaction is over. The time for feeling helpless is over. We must knock on every door and keep striving for the sake of Allah. We must trust that if we take a step toward Him, He will open the way forward. May Allah grant us sincerity, clarity, and victory. May He make us among those who strive in His path and among those who are guided.